Hello, and welcome to the Daily Try, the daily podcast that supports you on your fertility journey. My name's Lara, and today I'm going to talk to you about comparison. I think this is a hard one, and this is something that I think we all do. I know I do in everyday life, compare myself to other people, whether it's how I look or how I'm achieving things or performing at work or how even just anything to do with life. And I think when you're trying to get pregnant, it's worse because you don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes, and you still are comparing yourself with those other people. So friends that got pregnant the first time they tried, or some stranger on Instagram announcing baby number 3, or your sister-in-law or your cousin or someone who got pregnant without even trying. And it just feels like everyone is getting what they want except for you. And it can suck. I know that when I was going through my IVF cycles, I'd scroll through the announcements and feel like, yay, well, that's good for you. But at the same time, I'd feel sad that I wasn't actually having to be able to do that announcement. And then I feel guilty for feeling bad about it. And it's an exhausting cycle. And I think you often feel that your timeline indicates your worth somehow. So the longer it takes you to get pregnant, the less worthy you are or less valuable you are in society. And it's so not true. It's one of those things where it's just takes people, some people just take longer than others. And it's not, doesn't mean that you're any less of anything. It just means that your body is just taking longer to get pregnant on this occasion. But it's exhausting. And I remember that it being really exhausting, feeling like I'm doing all these things that I can do. And there's someone that hasn't even done anything, all the things I've done, and they've just got pregnant. And you're comparing yourself to, how far, like how many times they've tried, how many cycles they've done, and why is it that you've had to do so many more? And it can feel like you're getting left behind. But every fertility journey has a different process, I guess, a different shape, a different look to it. And there's different reasons why people can't get pregnant in straight away. And sometimes we know about those reasons and sometimes we don't. And it's not just us ourselves, but doctors, lots of them don't really understand why some things work for some people and some things work for others. So there's different treatments and different ways to do things, and there isn't really a behind or an ahead. It's just different stories, and your story is going to be different to someone else's. It's like, when people do have children, the way they raise the children is always different. Everyone raises their children differently depending on their beliefs and how they think it should be done. And getting pregnant is very similar in that you're doing things your way that works for your body on your timeline. But it's hard and it's exhausting. And even when you're trying not to compare yourself to other people, it's really hard not to. And you kind of, sometimes it can be a bit of a default to do it, even though you're not intending to. So if you are finding yourself in that comparison spiral today, here's a little kind of, I guess, kind of a mantra or a way to help deal with it a bit better. And just saying that you're not necessarily jealous of that person or that couple, but you're just exhausted by waiting. And if you can say these things out loud, it doesn't have to be to anyone, it can just be to yourself or in the mirror, then it can help you feel like you're not losing time or behind or not someone that is not going to get there, but just that you're exhausted because you've been waiting. And you are where you need to be right now. And I feel like this is such a funny thing to say, like silly, because no one knows what kind of life has really in store for them. No one really knows what's going to happen next. And when someone says, you're where you're meant to be, it can feel a bit like, doesn't feel like it. This sucks. I don't want to be in this spot. How do I get from to this spot to the next spot? And it's hard to just believe it will happen. And it's exhausted waiting. And I think it's just, this is just a really hard one. But I do think, I know from my own experience, if I say things out loud, then it does seem to make things more, not easier, but in some ways I can hear if I'm being irrational. So by saying it out loud, I actually think it helps me naming the thing, by just saying, I'm so exhausted of waiting for this to happen. Saying it out loud rather than just writing it down or thinking it can make a difference. And so that, I hope that helps. The other thing I found that kind of works for me in these kind of situations is journaling. If you are a journaler, writing down your thoughts and feelings on things. And it doesn't have to be for hours, but just saying how you feel. And sometimes then going back and looking at these things can actually be helpful. And you might start to notice patterns if you do it regularly. You might notice that you feel more exhausted on days when you're doing your shot or taking tablets or something first thing, and other days it might be at different times. So I hope that's a couple of things that will help you if you are in that spiral today. And know that I'm here and I will be back tomorrow. And here is a massive hug, and I hope you have a wonderful day.